Hello, everyone. Welcome to Human Oceans. After a long while, we are here with an interview, and I'm so excited for that. So, as we all know, recently the world agenda has like so many news discussable, but even though I believe that it's important to also focus on how to manage the situations and find more about practice more than theory. So that's why we are here with Fatih Ceylan today, Mr. Fatih Ceylan today. Hello, welcome again. Thank you so much for speaking to me today. And
thank you. I appreciate your kind invitation for this interview with Human Oceans. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I had the opportunity to check your impressive background, but can you also tell us about yourself and your career briefly?
Okay, I was born in 1957, Bursa. I had my university education in Ankara, political science faculty that belongs to University of Ankara. And in 1979, the same year I graduated from the Faculty of Political Science, I joined the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a candidate for a career diplomat. I had my postgraduate studies at Rutgers University, New Jersey, USA, and Princeton University. I got a special permission from the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs for attending postgraduate studies in the United States. And then I came back to Turkey in 1982 from the United States and rejoined the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I served almost 40 years as a career diplomat at the ministry, and in February of 2019, I retired after almost 40 years of career from the Turkish ministry. And following my retirement, I decided that I should share my accumulated knowledge and experience with the public at large, and started writing a series of articles focusing particularly on Turkish foreign and security policy. So that's a brief background that I would like to share with you. Thank you.
It's very impressive, and I think you'll be inspiration for so many of us. And how did you decide to study political science and international relations at the time? What made you inspired for that? I wonder.
Well, to be very frank, I mean, it's purely coincidental.
Really?
Yeah. My aim was to become a pilot when I was at the high school. Mm-hmm. But then I had problems with my eyes. Yeah. And that became impossible. So I thought that it would be better to be an electronics engineer. Mm-hmm. And that's how I identified my choices for universities. I'm talking about the university entrance exam. Mm-hmm. But somehow I included the Faculty of Political Science in my choices. That was the only social sciences that I included in my choice list. and I was able to join the Faculty of Political Science. It was not easy because I had all my friends in Istanbul. Mm-hmm. So the first years were rather difficult for me to have a network of friends here in Ankara. Mm-hmm. But the more I read political sciences and international relations, the more I developed an interest in international politics. So I decided to remain in Ankara and graduate from the Faculty of Political Science. And I chose the Division of International Relations at the Faculty of Political Science. It was like a peer pressure, I would say, because once you graduate from the International Relations Division of the Faculty of Political Science, the majority of my friends decided to take the entrance exams to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then it was like I would say, I would repeat, peer pressure. So okay, let me give it a chance, and I did, and I was successful in the entrance exams, and then I was accepted as a candidate for a career diplomat in 1979. So that's how my journey started in diplomacy.
Actually, it kind of reminded me of myself to hearing your story, because some similar thing happened to me too, and I believe that this discipline has some kind of a spell that gets you, like, once you start to learn more, you want to go deeper, you want to learn further, and I'm so happy that it went like for me too. And I really believe that the more you learn in international relations or in political science, it gets you, if you're of course a little bit into these topics, it gets you like more curious and you want to learn more. And actually I think that it's like very fun to learn compared to maybe other disciplines. And you really reminded me myself when I was at that time. So the third question, how would you describe being an ambassador and a diplomat, of course? What are the essential points of representing your country politically, culturally, and in other senses in a different country?
Well, being an ambassador is indeed a big, great honor for anyone. Because, and it's a big responsibility as well. I mean, you are representing your country abroad in different missions, and that is indeed a big responsibility. So it's a kind of mixture of honor and responsibility you feel to represent your country abroad, and it's a big burden as well, particularly if you're serving in a country where your own country has problems. That brings a number of challenges and increase the burden of your work over there. So for those students of international politics who are interested in joining the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think they should first and foremost think that this is a big responsibility. It's a long career. You have to pass each and every step in your career. You start like being a candidate for a career diplomat, and then you become the third secretary, second secretary, first secretary, and counselor, first counselor. And back in Ankara, you become the chief of section or head of department, and then deputy director general, and what it's a long and arduous process actually. So one has to mentally get prepared before joining the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs or any international organization for that matter. So this is one aspect of it. And the second question is what are the essential points of representing your country in a different country. It's at every level, regardless of your title. If you're serving abroad, you should do your best to represent your country and take the utmost care in how you live, where you live, in the city you serve, how you dress, how you behave, and the type of rhetoric you use, and the messages, the way in which you deliver your messages in that country becomes extraordinarily important. You have to be very careful, both in using the language and also the way you behave in a foreign country. First and foremost, any diplomat, regardless of their title, should be extremely sensitive vis-a-vis the laws and regulations in the country which he or she serves. I mean, you have to be a quote-unquote perfect example, first and foremost, of your own country. Mm-hmm. And also you have to be very careful in your dealings with the foreign officials abroad, either in the context of bilateral relations or in a framework of multilateral relations. So it's you have to have integrity, credibility, and reliability while exercising your diplomatic work or jobs, whatever, however you name it, throughout your tenure abroad. So that's how I would summarize the essential points. And of course, you have to be in a position to empathize with the feelings, sentiments prevailing in the country you are posted. That's very important. You should try to understand why the people in power of that country and the society behave, think, and why they bring forth the issues, the challenges that they face, and how they try to shape their policies against the backdrop of these aspects of governmental and societal dynamics. That's very important. So you have to be in a position to try to understand, to grasp the dynamics behind the type of behavior that they display when shaping and implementing their foreign policy. So that's extremely important. But that does not mean that, I mean, you have to be very much native, because, I mean, in reality, you're representing your own country, and too much empathy would hinder a healthy understanding of the dynamics of the country in which you act and serve as a diplomat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So actually, you mentioned a little bit about challenges too. I was about to ask, what do you think are the challenges of being an ambassador in a different country? Would you like to add anything to this question too?
It depends. It depends on the country in which you serve. You may have a very friendly atmosphere in country X, but you might face a different situation in country B. So when you're looking at this problem, I think one should also distinguish between the bilateral contexts and the multilateral framework, because a diplomat, regardless of of his title either serves in a bilateral context, in a bilateral manner, or in an international organization like the United Nations, NATO, the Council of Europe, and what have you. And it has different dynamics. I mean, bilateral diplomacy is different from multilateral diplomacy. And the challenges you face are also different in nature. In the bilateral context, if you're having big problems with a country in which you represent your own country, the situation is different. It's entirely different. For instance, I served in Pakistan as the second and first secretary at our embassy over there. So it's a very friendly atmosphere. So you have access to many people. And there is a kind of good feelings towards Turks in Pakistan. But it would be difficult, for instance, to have the same type of atmospherics like in Greece. It's a different environment with a totally different culture. So you have to adjust yourself to these cross-cultural challenges as well. So that is a situational, condition that we are talking about. Where you serve, in which context you perform your diplomatic duties, define the challenges that you're bound to face as an ambassador or as an official diplomat working in a mission abroad.
I've read that you represent us, Turkey, in NATO too. Like, can you please tell us about the challenges there, because I think it might be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Turkey is located in a very volatile area, geography, facing a number of challenges and surrounded by a string of conflicts and instabilities. So Turkey is a very important NATO member in that respect. During the Cold War, and I served like 40 years at the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and in total, 21 years out of 40 were dedicated to NATO affairs. So during the Cold War, it was a different era. Turkey had to perform the role of defending first and foremost itself vis-a-vis the Soviet threat. And then after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, we had a very high number of independent countries in our immediate neighborhood, to the west, to our east, like Caucasia, Central Asia, and also in the Balkans. So we were surrounded, I would say, by such instabilities, not to mention the Cyprus question we have been dealing with since the 60s. So that's where we were when dealing with foreign policy issues. At NATO, Turkey, I mean, it's in a very difficult position, hosting such a critical geography as a member of NATO. Again, it changes from one period to another. Sure. I mean, during the Cold War period, Turkey had to take the burden of defending Turkey, certainly our own country, and also try to abide by the obligations and commitments it has towards NATO under the basis of the Washington Treaty of 1949. That's one thing. And after the end of the Cold War, we were not in a position to benefit as our European counterparts did, because the instabilities continued. I mean, there was the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, destabilization in the Balkans. These are all in our immediate neighborhood. So Turkey was not able to benefit from what people used to call peace dividend in comparison to our Western European allies. Mm-hmm. So we were under duress, under stress, even after the end of the Cold War. Things started to get better in the last decade, from 1990 till 2001, when there was this terrorist attack in the United States perpetrated by Al-Qaeda, Twin Towers and Pentagon, terror acts. Things started to change. And we faced different issues, starting with the intervention in Afghanistan by NATO forces, but which was based on the United Nations Security Council resolutions, by the way, that has to be underlined. And then Russia-Georgia war in 2008, followed by Russian occupation and annexation of Crimea in 2014. And now we have another Russian assault on Ukrainian territory in 2022. So things change. It's contextual. The type of issues we faced during the Cold War period is now entirely different. In this new era, in the aftermath of the Russian military intervention or operation in Ukraine. So that defines the agenda of NATO and also underlines the different types of challenges that both NATO as an alliance and Turkey had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. So until now, you stressed of course it's such an, I think for everyone, it's such an honoring job to represent your own country in a different place, in different diplomatic communications. But it's I want to now talk about the other side of being an ambassador. What do you think is the best thing about being an ambassador? Of course, it's like very honoring, but do you have any other opinions about it? And is there any moment that you feel like, yes, it's good to be an ambassador and I'm happy here?
You know, as I pointed out earlier in our interview, mm-hmm. One of the best things to be an ambassador is to represent your country abroad, mm-hmm. in all its dimensions. Ambassadors are normally the representative of the president of the country, but they also represent the whole nation, mm-hmm. The whole institutions in a country. So that brings about a big responsibility on your behavior, on the language you use, and how you communicate your messages, either in a country you are posted to or in an international context. We are talking about international or regional organizations. And the other best thing is that, of course, is that you carry this title until the end, until your life terminates, mm-hmm. Even after retirement, and that's by law. I mean, it's not a kind of de facto preference, but this is something under the Turkish law,
Mhm.
that you have the authority to be ambassador even after your retirement.
Mhm.
So the responsibilities never end. I mean, whenever you write or say something, you simply cannot overcome this title of being an ambassador, of carrying that responsibility, of once representing your country abroad. Another thing is that, of course, when you're working at the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you have access to very sensitive information, both of your country and also the countries or organizations you serve.
Mhm.
And that is another code of conduct. So you have to be very careful when you're saying something or when you're writing something. It has to have a sound basis. You simply cannot detach yourself from realities, from realism in international politics. And of course, you acquire a big degree of knowledge when you're serving at the foreign ministry. It's a build-up of knowledge. You start with, of course, with less knowledge of international politics in practice. I'm not talking about theory. Theory is something else. I'm talking about implementing the foreign policy. So that brings another, I would say, added value to your knowledge and experience. And that's another best thing of being a diplomat. And until the time you become ambassador, there's a vast experience, built up in your previous positions under different conditions, and also in different countries or organizations. So it's a process that never ends. A process of still carrying the responsibility of representing your country, even after your retirement.
Okay. And can you tell us can you share an interesting memory that you experienced during your you were an ambassador and diplomat?
I think there are a lot, and it's very difficult to choose from, but okay, let me share one of them. In my last posting as the Turkish ambassador to NATO, we were supporting wholeheartedly the integration of Macedonia. That's how we used to call it. It's now become North Macedonia, but so we always refer to Macedonia as Macedonia by its constitutional name. So aware of Turkey's active support for Macedonia's accession to NATO and our efforts to that effect in NATO, when this issue was addressed, the president of Macedonia, Georgi Ivanov, came to Brussels. And my Macedonian colleague at NATO told me that the president would like to have a conversation with me. And he wanted to have my thoughts on how Macedonia could become a NATO member as soon as possible. So I went to him, and I was making a presentation of the atmosphere within NATO, the main hindrance introduced by Greece regarding the name issue for years, for decades, and how that could be overcome, and how Macedonia could facilitate, rather expedite, its accession to NATO. And my mobile phone was ringing all the time. during my presentation, after I started, like after 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so, it was ringing. And I was able to feel it. I mean, it's the vibration of the mobile phone, but I was not able to answer it, to respond to it, because I was giving a presentation to a president of a very friendly country. And then one of my colleagues who was accompanying me, he told me, said, "Sir, there's a big problem that we have," whispering in my ear. I said, "What is the problem?" And he said, "We shut down a Russian warplane." That was November 2015. And that would require giving a presentation at NATO on how it happened. I said, "Look, I have to finish my presentation, answer the questions posed by the president of Macedonia, and then we will go back to office and inform the council on what happened during that dramatic incident." And that's exactly how I did. And on my way back to NATO, there were, of course, phone after phone call that this is the case. So we have to inform NATO about it and things like that. And they were kind of asking why I did not answer the phones and things. I said, "Look, I was giving a presentation to the president of Macedonia on how to expedite the membership of Macedonia to NATO. So I was not in a position to answer your phone calls. As soon as I go back to NATO, I shall immediately start preparing a presentation to the NATO Council of what happened during the shutdown of this Russian warplane." So it was a very stressful day, meeting the president of Macedonia, Georgi Ivanov.
Mm-hmm.
He was the president then, and convening the NATO Council to present them the findings of what happened, rather, during the shutdown of this downing of this Russian warplane. Another stress was that on that particular day, there was an electric outage at NATO lasting hours, 3 or 4 hours. There was only one computer available to us. Mm-hmm. And it became very hard to prepare the presentation that I was going to bring to the attention of the NATO Council. And I had to ask delay in the convening of the NATO Council. Experience or memory about my days at NATO. There are many, of course, but this is only one of them. That was a striking experience, a striking day, I would say.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing with us, and again, thank you so much for speaking to me today. I think people will find it very interesting, because it's like it's so precious that you are sharing your experience with us, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Well, it was a pleasure. I hope that this interview will be useful, particularly for young students of international politics. Mm-hmm. And particularly for those who intend to join the ranks of the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's a long career, so you have to persevere in your efforts, and there is no end to learning in diplomacy, in implementing diplomacy. It's a very dynamic atmosphere. You have to be update on many issues dominating the international scene. I mean, for instance, I still read the news every single morning. Not only the Turkish media, certainly, but also the foreign media, and a lot of analyses on different issues. it's a discipline.
Mhm.
So you have to adjust yourself to such a discipline. Reading different books and articles and essays and what have you, and following events very closely, trying to reach a kind of synthesis of what's happening and how that would affect Turkey's foreign policy is an ongoing work, even for retired diplomats. So it's something that you have to get yourself disciplined every single day.
Mhm.
And when you're practicing diplomacy in Ankara or in a foreign country, you do not have like classical working period starting 9 in the morning and ending at 6 p.m. in the afternoon. That's not the case. It goes on and on, including the weekends. I'm not trying to kind of demoralize or discourage young students, but that's reality. So you have to accept it before joining the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs or an international organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such a pleasure to talk with you. And sounds like a whole journey, but I think there are so many enthusiastic people who would love to experience that.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. It's Başak here. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Mr. Ambassador Fatih Ceylan. And if you'd like to see more videos, we had an interview with the ambassador of Sweden in Ankara too, so you can check it out. And if you want to see more content from Human Oceans, you can follow us via Instagram, or you can keep it up with the website too. And lastly, I'm so sad that I forget to record myself in the interview, but it's okay. Hope you enjoy it. Please don't forget to comment and like on the videos. And if you have any further questions, please leave it as a comment. Thank you. Bye.